need another seat at the table.
Welcome, everybody. Are you happy? Are you proud to be Albanian? Are you happy you're here in America and proud to be American? Senator, everybody that we know in Washington knows that the biggest supporters of our country are the Albanian people. And that's one of the reasons George W. Bush didn't take too much time to recognize in 2008, the independence of Kosovo. But it's still a work in process. You know that, everybody.
Yes.
We're independent, but many people say we're independent in name only. That's not right. Because right now with the European community, you have 4 countries that don't respect Kosovo, haven't recognized it, 4 of the 28. And of the United Nations, and we're not part of the United Nations yet, it's over 100 countries, but there's almost 200 countries. So we have more than half. So we have to work. Shum pum, right?
Yes.
But we're going to do it. We've done it before. We were in terrible circumstances, as you know, under the Serbian regime with the ethnic cleansing. And that's a past chapter. We don't want to go back there, do we?
No.
So we got to teach Mr. Vučić a lesson that we know he was taught by Milosevic. Milosevic went to The Hague, and unfortunately for him, he died there. We don't want Vučić to remember all the counseling he got from Milosevic, because the same is going to happen to him. And it's not going to be from us. It's going to be the United States of America that's going to stand up for human rights first for everybody, especially for their friends. And there's no better friends for the United States of America, especially the Congress, who's always been in the front, and the Senate and the House, than the Albanian people. Is that right?
Yes.
Aren't we happy to see Senator Menendez and Nadine here again?
Yes.
Great.
I'm going to shorten some of my remarks. I had initially intended to have everyone from the board stand up and be recognized, so we will do that later. As you know, Kosovo's free, but it's not totally independent yet. And so the work of the Civic League with the U.S. Congress, who understand what is at stake for the future of Kosovo, it's not yet finished. So, and this is why we're so fortunate that Senator Menendez, who served in the Senate, am I correct, for 25 years, I believe, am I right? The number?
Not in the Senate, between the House and the Senate for 30 years.
30 years. Thank you for that correction. He is now chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, as you know, and those of you who attended our previous Albanian American Civic League event with him in September were deeply aware of the depth of his knowledge about the Kosovo-Serbia conflict, his commitment to its resolution, and at a time when we are in a situation where the real threats to democracy and the rise of authoritarianism, this senator is fighting oppression. This senator is supporting democracy across the globe. We are very, very grateful. And with that,
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to welcome you back to New Jersey. It's good to be with you. May I wish you all a healthy, and I say healthy because I just had shoulder surgery less than a month ago, so I understand that's important, but healthy, joyous, and prosperous new year as we begin this year. I want to thank Congressman DioGuardi and Shirley for inviting me back. It was good to be here in September. It's a pleasure to once again be addressing the Albanian American Civic League with my wife Nadine. She said we have to head to the train station to catch a train to Washington because I have an important meeting later tonight. Normally I go down on Monday, but I have to go back. We have issues with Russia. And the Emir of Qatar is in Washington, so we are meeting with him tonight. So anyhow, I'm glad that I was able to make it here and we could arrange the schedule so that I could be with you once again. We were honored to join with you in September where we spoke at length about our commitment to Albanians and to Kosovo. I wanted to be here especially today as we celebrate this incredible milestone that the Congressman and Shirley have been part of, two tireless advocates on behalf of Kosovo, and among those working to achieve a Southeast Europe that is at peace, whole, and democratic. And they deserve an incredible recognition for the work that they've done.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to be here with the ambassador as well. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence, and with the esteemed members of the board of the Albanian American Civic League and all who have come to celebrate the legacy of your organization. It's vital work on behalf of Kosovo Albanians and Albanian communities across the Balkans. Congratulations to Dr. Bislimi as well for his work to illuminate Congressman DioGuardi's and Shirley's historic efforts that spurred Congress to action on behalf of Kosovo Albanians. Congratulations. The quest for Albanian freedom and the end of Yugoslavia catalogs a critical period of the Albanian American Civic League's engagement with Congress that paved the way for an independent Kosovo years later. Both Joe and Shirley have a long history of advancing human rights of Kosovo Albanians and supporting the self-determination of Kosovo. As early as 1985 and 1986, Joe pushed for Kosovo to have a platform in the Congressional Human Rights Caucus. I used to belong, when I was in the House of Representatives, to the Congressional Human Rights Caucus. It is a powerful group of members, then at that time led by the late Tom Lantos, who was known, his name was synonymous with human rights in the world. In the early 1990s, Joe stood up for speaking out against human rights abuses in Kosovo and forged a bipartisan alliance that included Congressman Lantos, Senator Bob Dole, and then someone named Senator Joe Biden, now the President of the United States, to advocate for democracy in Kosovo. His efforts to hold Slobodan Milosevic to account for war crimes were critical for advancing peace and democracy in the Balkans. Meanwhile, Shirley eloquently made the case to the American people during the war as to why Kosovo must be an independent country. Under Joe and Shirley's leadership, the Albanian American Civic League tugged at the American conscience. It pricked the American conscience. It reminded us that democracy and human rights in Kosovo were the unfinished issues of the Balkan conflict. Today, Congress continues to work towards a Southeast Europe that is at peace, whole, and democratic, one that includes an independent Kosovo. On January 10th, I presided, and I'm glad to announce that we have newly confirmed ambassador. Ambassador Hovenier presented his credentials to President Osmani during his hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which I chaired. I impressed upon him as the nominee my concern that the United States has tried to take a neutral approach in normalization talks between Kosovo and Serbia, when Serbia is disproportionately responsible for the current lack of talks. I support increased United States engagement in these talks, and I'm pleased that President Biden appointed an incredibly qualified candidate to represent us in Pristina. Both our ambassadors to Pristina and Belgrade were young diplomats at the Rambouillet Conference. The United States now has put some of our best players on the field for the first time in a while. However, we can't rest on our laurels. Congress has to continue the work to ensure the rights of Albanians, and particularly in the Preševa Valley and I have pushed the State Department to increase its engagement on this front, as I said I would when we were here in September. With so much important work to do, I welcome the contributions of the Albanian American Civic League towards advancing peace and democracy in the region. When the history of Kosovo is written in its future chapters, there is no question in my mind that Joe and Shirley and the Albanian Civic League will have gilded pages of that chapter of Kosovo history. Thank you very much.
The senator said he would take a few questions before he left. So let's see if we can ask a couple of, let me be the first, okay? We have promised the Albanian people who support us, and we need your help, that we would have a hearing to go over the key elements of what it's going to take to see Kosovo progress again. We've been on a long road of positive progression, interrupted by the Kosovo wars, as you know, and other things. So we just wanted to go on record to say that we need your help to kind of promote the message of the Albanian people in Kosovo and in the Balkans for their self-determination again and for their human rights, especially when you have such aggressive adversaries. I won't even mention their name, you know who they are. So with that, I will ask you to just make a couple of comments. And
I think you all heard the question, which is how soon can we have hearings in the Senate about Kosovo and its future, and how we realize its future of independence and freedom and prosperity in a way that all Kosovars desire and deserve. And so, of course, before the Foreign Relations Committee, we deal with the whole world, and the world is on fire right now. Of course, we have the immediate challenge of Russia as it amasses 130,000 troops on the borders of Ukraine. And for us as Americans, this is beyond the question of Ukraine itself. What we cannot have is a Munich moment. Those of you who may remember history may remember 1938, when Neville Chamberlain ultimately gave Czechoslovakia to Adolf Hitler in pursuit of peace at any price. And the result of that we saw was that peace was not accomplished, but that in fact Hitler continued his voracious desire to gain more and more territory in Europe. Putin is very clear about his goals. He laments the demise of the Soviet Union, and he seeks to recreate what he calls Nouvelle Russia, to recreate, to rebuild those countries that are now separate and independent and bring it back into the Soviet orbit. I say that only because that's taken a lot of time for us. Also, we have the challenge of China, which is probably, until Russia's aggression, the single most geostrategic challenge. And we have the challenge of North Korea firing missiles. And we have the challenge in our own hemisphere, of Venezuela, El Salvador, Nicaragua, just to mention a few. So there's a lot on the agenda. But having said that, I have spoken to the chair of the Europe subcommittee, and instead of waiting for a full committee hearing, which is what my desire would be, and we still may be able to do that, to have a hearing at the Europe subcommittee level that can begin the dialogue. And I would hope that we would get there sometime in the next 2 months. And if we do that, we will begin a dialogue that I think will be incredibly important.
thank you.
Thank you for coming to our event. You're very much respected by our community, and thank you for everything what you've been doing, not only on Albanian issue. My question is this. President Biden is one of the most knowledgeable people about the conflict in Kosovo and the Balkans. He appointed very powerful ambassadors, Gabriel Escobar. They are very strong and powerful, but the statements that we are getting are still very unclear about where they stand on the policy. It appears that they are going along with the European policy, which is appeasement, infinite appeasement of Serbia, indefinite appeasement of Serbia. What can we do to stop this, and to our representatives to see them take a lead, not follow the Europe? They should take a lead to resolve the conflict, because the conflict will not be resolved by appeasing Serbia.
Question, in essence, was we have good ambassadors, great, but the messaging that we're getting is not as strong, not as clear, and as decisive as we would like as it relates to Kosovo. What can we do to change that reality? And so I think that the hearing that I just talked about always rivets the attention of the State Department in terms of what is it that Congress is seeking, and what is it that we get the administration to focus on. As I just described the world, part of the challenge, and we think about this administration being in like if it was in for years, it just culminated its first year in office. It has been dealing with a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. So we had nobody vaccinated. Now we have 200 million people vaccinated. It was dealing with the challenges of the pandemic that ultimately led to enormous economic consequences. So we passed the American Rescue Plan to rescue businesses, restaurants, people, help families. We passed an infrastructure bill when we in fact have the worst infrastructure that we've had since Eisenhower and the interstate highway system. I say that only to say it has not had its attention focused in a way that we would like it to see, particularly in global matters. So now is an opportunity to rivet the administration's attentions as we deal with Russia, which is its most immediate thing, I have to be honest, but by the same token, take the opportunity to say that there are other challenges in Europe that need to be dealt with so that peace and stability can not only happen, hopefully, in Eastern Europe, but can happen in the Balkans as well. And so I think the hearing that the Congressman asked about is going to be the gateway towards getting that focus. And we are committed to making that happen. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to leave, but thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Now, I wanted you to know that Faik worked very hard as he did the last time Senator Menendez came. And when you're trying to get a good group together, you need an anchor. You need people to see if they can get at least 20, 30, 40 people, and then another group comes in, and then you start getting one by one the rest. And that's why we were so successful before, and he did it again. He had 60 people listed to come. Now, some of them had to, because of the weather, had to back out. Yeah, now, the other thing you have to know is that one of his uncles passed away, and you know the traditions of the Albanian families. What makes Albanians different is they are wedded to their traditions, to their families, and that's important. And Faik has shown that again today. Now, in about a half hour, a group is going to leave, maybe 20, maybe 30 people, because the uncle that passed away is going to be buried, I guess, there's a week. Tomorrow, there's a week today. But in any case, I'm going to introduce now Faik. Shirley and I really appreciate all the things he does, and it's hard to single out anybody, but I can assure you that today was difficult because of the weather, because of the fact that we had limited time with the senator. So without further ado, I'm going to have Faik now say a few words. Senator Faik.
As Joe said, my name is Faik Lita, and I've been a member of this league since 1992. We came for this book, and thank you very much, Dr. Bislimi, for writing this wonderful book. I finished reading it yesterday, and I wrote some comments today about it. It is really a wonderful book, and I think everybody should read this book. This is a book, if read deeper, this is a book actually about, Joe was thinking about this, about the Albanian version of David and Goliath. The Goliath who took different forms and became a darling of Washington continued to spew lie after lie about Albanians, and in the process became super confident in his final version that was Slobodan Milosevic. But then something miraculous happened. A group of Albanians founded David, DioGuardi, and together created the AACL. The Serbian Goliath was shocked when his two weapons of propaganda and lies did not match the mighty weapons that our David possessed, which were the truth on one hand and the powerful voice on the other. That reduced the loud voice of the monster to a whisper. Finally, the last version of the Goliath died a lonely death in The Hague, complaining that Joe DioGuardi and the League were responsible for his demise. In essence, this book should be about lobbying at its finest. We read about many congressional resolutions, speeches on the floor of Congress by great men such as Senators Dole and Pell, Congressman Lantos, Gilman Hyde, and our own Joe. We read letters to the State Department officials exposing the brutal occupation of Kosovo. This book also documents many congressional hearings initiated by the League, many demonstrations against the inhumane treatment of Albanians in Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Preševa Valley. It also documents the great dinners organized by the League in which prominent guests who support the Albanian cause, that included senators, congressmen, and other dignitaries, who in their speeches denounced the occupation and pledged to work hard to end it. Most politicians in Washington evolved from total ignorance about Albanians to knowledge, deep knowledge about our history and the constitution of Albanian people into cakes and toasts. This is phenomenal. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is a wonderful book, mainly because it contains documents of historical importance that will hopefully be read by generations of Albanians with pride and marvel. I hope this book is read by all Albanians, but especially by elected officials in Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Preševa Valley, and realize that lobbying is the most effective way to realize the national cause. If they already know this and choose another group to lobby for them, though fine with me, I would suggest this to them. Joe DioGuardi's voice, now aided by Shirley's, is still the most powerful one. Finally, though I like the book, don't just take my word for it, because I am confident that after reading it, you will come to the same conclusion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Many of you people know him. He's been a member of the board and the executive board of the Albanian American Civic League and Foundation for, I think, 30 years.
Yeah, 31.
31, to be exact, okay. And as many of you know, and I'm going to read this exactly, he was Deputy Director for North America in charge of tourism for Kosovo and the former Yugoslavia. But when the former Yugoslavia collapsed, he had to immediately return with his family to Kosovo, but then once he was in Kosovo and Serbia overtook it and the occupation began, he fled with his family from his home in Dečan, came back to the United States, and built the very important Kosovo Tours International. I think you're all aware of it, the leading travel agency serving the Albanian American community and non-Albanian professionals involved in Western Europe and the Western Balkans. With that, welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests. I want to mention especially our historian, great historian Yusuf Bujovi, who is with us, the ambassador of Albania, Mr. Ferit Hoxha, Mr. Timothy Ikufaj, our ambassador in New York, and our new ambassador Ilir Dugoli. We wish him great success. We need this guy. Today, we are celebrating the historical work of former American Congressman of British origin, Joseph J. DioGuardi, and the Albanian American Civic League during years 1985-93, prepared by the member of Executive Board of Albanian American Civic League, Dr. Faton Bislimi. Thank you, Faton. Thank you again. In a book titled Quest for Albanian Freedom and the Fall of Yugoslavia. I would like to emphasize the well-established
truth, also documented in the book written by Patan, that Joseph J. DioGuardi is a historical figure of the Albanian nation. Great national leaders and historical figures are born at a certain time and created in certain historical circumstances and crucial moments of a nation. They are unique with leadership skills, bravery, and accomplishments. Due to our nation's turbulent but glorious history, our people have many such sons and daughters. Among them are those that changed the course of our history forever, such as Gjergj Kastrioti Skanderbeu, Ismail Qemali, Ibrahim Rugova, Adem Yashari, and Joseph J. DioGuardi. Thank you. Joseph DioGuardi is without any doubt a living legend of the Albanian nation. Following the path of Fancinoli and Faik Konica, he is the father of organized, modern, very successful Albanian-American lobbying activity in Washington and beyond. Joe's first 4 years as a congressman, then as a president of Albanian American Civic League, joined in 1994 by Shote Ganica, Shirley, Cloyes, DioGuardi, and supported by the board of Albanian American Civic League and many thousands of Albanians in the United States. Their work was extremely important in achieving Kosovo's freedom and independence. Even though Kosovo was by far the biggest challenge and the most important issue, Joe, Shirley, and the League have been standing up for the human and national rights of the whole Albanian nation. Almost every single U.S. senator and congressman since 1985 who helped our national cause was initially engaged by Joe and the League. There are other countless activities which will be documented in many other books. I would like to mention only a few. Meeting of President Rugova, legendary President Rugova, and with President Clinton, support for KLA and legendary Commander Adem Yashari and other commanders, and removal from the U.S. terrorist list of the KLA, and as well as impressive demonstrations that we had in New York and Washington. All of you remember, thousands of Albanians showed up in these events. The people of Kosovo fought for their freedom from Serbian occupation for more than a century. In the last 30 years, there were 3 decisive factors that brought about the freedom and the independence: the peaceful resistance by democratic movement led by Dr. Ibrahim Rugova, the armed resistance by Kosovo Liberation Army led by Adem Yashari and other heroes, and the lobbying activity in Washington led by Joe DioGuardi. American help and NATO bombing of Serbia came as a result and combination of these 3 factors. The history of Kosovo's independence will be incomplete unless a monument to Joe and Shirley, until that monument is built in Pristina. Everybody else got monuments. These people who changed the course of history in the United States for the Albanian nations, they deserve a monument in Pristina and in Tirana and everywhere where Albanian people live. They would not accept any recognition by corrupt sellout politicians. It is widely expected. It is widely expected that President Osmani and our Prime Minister Kurti will do it, or this will be done sometimes later by somebody else, but there will be a shame on them if they don't do it. The League's professional, independent, powerful work in Washington will continue regardless, until the final defeat of criminal Serbia. Yes. For me, and millions of Albanian Americans all over the world, Joe and Shirley are extraordinary personalities and heroes. It has been an honor to know them and work closely with them on behalf of Albanian exceptional nation. I say it 2 times, I will say it 10 times for people who are ashamed to be Albanians. Albanian nation is exceptional, like American nation is exceptional. It has been an honor to know them and work closely with them on behalf of our exceptional nation. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
And thank you, Albanian American Civic League and Albanian Americans who helped our cause. May God bless American and Albanian nations.
Thank you so much.